Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
All right, I take it back. Not every Friday. Most Fridays is what I should probably say, because there's these things called trials that I've got beginning to resent the Karen Read trial. I understand everybody loves the Karen Read trial, but it has been kind of a pain trying to put together panels. But before we get started, we have a very important thing that we have to announce. I have a video put together for this, and everybody please bear with me.
That is beautiful. Eric, I don't know how. I'm on one bar, I think. How smooth can you guys see me or hear me?
You're not too bad. Not too bad.
Okay. I'm on one bar. I'm at a farm called Coastal Pasture Farms on the 441. And it's a place where my wife and kids come every Friday for the homeschooling thing. And I interviewed the farm owner today. So it's beautiful, but my gosh, is it hot.
So are you going to talk to him about Maha and whatnot, things like that?
Oh, no, he's on board. I was actually, part of his problem is the government making it very difficult to actually operate a regenerative farm with regulation and coming in and saying, making it impossible for independent farmers to actually do this. So,
but I'm sure that the new head of the Department of Agriculture is going to straighten that all out, right?
Well, his experience thus far with the Florida state authorities, or at least the Broward County authorities, I think it's Broward County, have not been good. But the farm, it's just amazing. I mean, it's beautiful. Around the bees over there. There's hundreds of chickens, and they got 2 coops, and I just had a glass of beet juice, so I'm gonna have red urine for a little while.
Oh, congratulations. What's funny about that is when you forget that you had it, and a few hours later, you're like, oh, Jesus, what happened?
No, I made the joke, like they should make beet bracelets, or like bracelets should come with beets, so that you put it on your wrist, and then you remember, like when your movements are bright red, you're not dying. It's actually just nutrition.
See, folks, you get every subject in Layback Law. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, farmers, this is the exact same problem for every farmer anywhere on the globe. Politicians and bureaucrats thinking they know better than the farmers. I mean, when I applied for the ecological standard in the European Union a decade ago, just the folder for applying was that thick. I got a compendium like 3 inches thick of things I had to comply to. It's absolutely ridiculous. So no, I am not an ecological farmer.
I can understand that. I'd say it's probably even worse than that, Nick, because not only do they think they know more than farmers, they consider farmers to be ignorant and uneducated.
Yeah. We are like spreaders with luck. So, I mean,
well, you apply, like, the bureaucracy just to run a business is one thing, and then you add an extra layer of bureaucracy to a specialty that, this guy Jake here is running an amazing farm. No injections, no vaccines for the animals. Regenerative soil, and some bureaucrats are saying, no, you don't have enough water for your chickens or enough shade for your chickens, and make it impossible to operate the small business that is a farm. But it's it's beautiful. So we had a good lunch out here, and the kids are somewhere, right over there. And but no, that's it. Other than that, you got the Karen Read trial that's taken up people's time, and the other one there, P. Diddy.
Well, Diddy, I'm waiting for Joe to come on, because I mean, there's no point talking about Diddy without the guy who's in the courtroom. But Nick covered, I think it was a deputy who had a self-defense trial.
Yeah.
Can you just give us thumbnail, what it was, what happened, and where it is.
Okay, the state versus Michael Schur. He was the guy who had an altercation with a guy in a car with the false plates, and roughness ensued. He lost his taser to the guy in the rough and tumble, and after a couple of minutes, he was out of breath and decided, okay, I'm going to let go of the taser, push the guy away from me on the ground, brought up his service revolver and in the head. So the state, this was 2022, I believe, and so the state decided, no, we're going to charge you with murder. And so the trial was absolutely ridiculous, with a prosecutor that could not for the life of him talk in a normal tone. No, he had to shout at his own witnesses, at the defense witnesses, except the judge. He could not shout at the judge. So that's
okay.
And the defense, I mean, he had to get his own attorney because the cop union wouldn't get one for him. So he's out of luck there. And, well, he could have made better choices. But what they had was the ability to get good witnesses, extremely good witnesses, who they questioned quite badly, but they got the evidence out. And then in comes this prosecutor and starts shouting. And the experts said, no, that's not how it's done, Mr. Prosecutor. This is how it's done. So the prosecutor basically proved the defense case of self-defense. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, a question. I'm just going to ask you a couple really quick questions on it because, one, you said he was in a tussle, and so he was wrestling with the defendant and lost control of his taser. I'm assuming that the defendant, or not defendant, but the person who died, who perished, whatever, had control of said taser. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
He was belly down, had the taser, and then what we couldn't see in normal speed was at the very end of this altercation, he had the, the barrel of the taser, and then he changed to his right hand. And that made the cop pull away and put a bullet or freedom speed.
Let me continue. The reason why I'm asking is I've interviewed Dr. Michael Wood, who is a former Baltimore police officer. He came on prominence with the Freddie Gray case, I believe it was, where they were transporting the person. And essentially, a lot of people don't realize it, but a taser is considered a deadly weapon.
Yes.
Period. So be it a taser, because a lot of people would be like, hey, a taser can't kill you. A taser can technically disable that officer, which means he's completely out of commission and vulnerable. He could die, or he could even have a heart attack, or things have happened from a tasing. Yeah. So just objectively speaking, if the person did have hold of a deadly weapon, it does sound like a self-defense case could be viable here.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Branca covered the case, and for him, the law was crystal clear. I had my doubts because when you played the recordings of the event, you could not actually see in normal speed. You couldn't see the switch from just holding on to it to more or less being prepared to use it as a weapon. So all you could see in these videos, a series of videos, was rough and tumble, guy on the ground, on his stomach, and all of a sudden the cop lifts himself up, pushes him down, brings up the gun, and shoots him. That's all you could see. So, of course, there was a public uproar at the time. But after watching the defense experts explain what happened, what actually happened, and playing this in a lower speed, because the cop saw what most didn't, the immediate threat that was about to happen. because, as you said, it counts as a deadly weapon or risk of greater bodily harm. And also the incapacitation. As a cop, you have a gun. If you're incapacitated and you're
now they have a gun. They also have your badge too.
Yeah, now they have a gun and a badge.
Yes. So and that has happened. Plus, if the cop, why is he wrestling a cop to begin with? I mean, we got to kind of step back and go.
This was very early in the morning. They were at a party the night before, and early in the morning, they decided to go buy beer and drink it. And the cop, now, he made poor choices, the cop. First of all, that cop was David Helm's size. I mean, 5'7", 5'8", something around that. The guy he tried to wrestle was my size. So he approached him. That guy never took orders. Stay in the car. He got out of the car.
Right. And that's my point. Really, I don't think any of this would have happened if the victim, whatever you want to call him, did not escalate it. Am I correct? If he stayed in the car, or if he followed any directions, would have this confrontation ever taken place?
No. Nik, before you answer, Hunley, I don't know if my audio is totally garbled, but
it's garbage.
Yeah,
David, you're roboting badly.
Oh, okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Well, I got a birthday wishing, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, but the trial ended about 2 weeks ago as a hung jury.
Okay.
So mistrial was declared, and then yesterday the prosecution came out with, no, we will not retry this case, because apparently they went in, talked to the jury, and it was one holdout against acquittal on all counts. But
so at least the majority was doing that.
Yeah, but I do believe that this prosecutor won't have many friends in his county, because one of the comments he made against one of the experts was, well, what do you mean the cop was exhausted? Firefighters go into houses all the time and they don't die in there. Yeah. And the guy sat, the expert, we have a board down in the fire station with firemen dead on duty. Oh, I stand corrected. So this prosecutor pissed off not only the cops, he pissed off the firemen. I don't think he's up for re-election next time. Let's just say that.
I mean, let's hope not. I mean, that's now people are saying 10-2 for acquittal. Bob Charles, that's good.
Oh, 10-2. Okay.
Is there talk about a civil trial, and will this help his odds?
I don't think.
I guess he's not being sued. It'll be the city, right?
I haven't heard anything about a civil suit, and after this trial, I don't think there's much of a civil case. But he can try. I mean, you can sue anybody for everything, but I don't think it. My personal opinion, I don't think it has much to go with. Hi, Nate.
Hey,
we were just talking about
guy?
Hey, what's up? We were just talking about the Chris Schur case, and it sounds like the right outcome. Actually, not quite the right outcome. It sounds like it should have been an acquittal, possibly, but it wound up with a hung jury, and they're not going to re-prosecute.
Oh well, and what was the jury count? Was it like
10-2.
10-2
for acquittal.
Favoring for acquittal? Yeah, so you probably wouldn't try
10-2, and then I heard via other sources that they got the other one to, okay, it's an acquittal, and then it was one last holdout, but it was 10-2 most of the time.
Question: how is it in the Schur case they managed to find out what the jury count was, but the Karen Reed case seems like it was a big mystery?
Different jurisdictions.
Yeah,
because like I know in New York, if the jury comes back, you can ask the jury to be polled. So, but I'm assuming they can do that in every jurisdiction. But yeah, so certain jurisdictions, they have different procedures that allow you to poll the jury.
Would you agree? Now, I'm as a layman, I feel like you should poll every hung jury just to check and see where you are.
It's possible, but if the jury's, because you need a unanimous decision either way. So
I know that, but for making future decisions and to get a concept on which way were they leaning, I think that all of that is relevant.
Well, but I don't know. I could see some courts saying it doesn't matter if it's not all or nothing. Why are we going to ask each individual person? And this.
Well, because you're determining your budget. If you're going to retry something on a hung jury, just what you said right there. If it was 10-2 acquittal, they're like, yeah, probably not going to do it because it was leaning pretty hard that way, and odds are better that it's going to hang again, correct, at a minimum, or it'll go all the way to an acquittal. So I would think for even fiscal responsibility, it would make some degree of sense of, does it pay to keep pursuing something when there are many other cases out there?
Well, the thing is that also too, the prosecutor isn't trying to seek convictions; they're supposed to seek justice, and sometimes that justice may be an acquittal too. So it all depends if they're purists. If you're a purist and you think you got a case that you can get a conviction for, you go out again. Damn what this jury thinks, because you could present it differently before. But again, there's no universal rule. I think it would, to me, if I'm making a decision, yeah, it would be better. But I'm assuming they have reasons why they don't, poll them in every situation.
Yeah, and maybe I can see how defense really don't want to take that risk either. As in the first Karen Reed trial, they wanted to acquit on 2 counts and they were hung on the third. Yeah, but it might as well has been the other way around. They might
hold on. Somebody in the chat said Nate's wrong about Massachusetts. They usually poll the jury in these types of cases.
Oh,
the judge neglected to do this and dismissed the jury very quickly. The lawyers did not get a chance to request it.
Well, no, I didn't say. Well, he
didn't say that it was definitely Massachusetts.
Well, I don't know the rules in Massachusetts. I just telling you what generally some jurisdictions do it, some jurisdictions don't. And matter of fact, this one will at the Supreme Court, and they said what the court did in this case was fine. So I don't know what people want me to say.
They want you to make it right, Nate. They want you to make it perfect, Nate. Come on now, buddy.
Yeah, Nate for Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
No, I'd be throwing out the next day.
One can only hope.
They wouldn't like me, yeah.
All right, so Nate, it's been almost a month since we've done a layback law, which is crazy. What have you been covering? I'm waiting for Joe to come on before I talk Diddy. So I don't want to talk Diddy without Joe.
Which makes sense. Yeah. Just my regular stuff. Just my regular stuff is really because I'm really focused in on Diddy 2 and just the regular run-of-the-mill stuff.
All right, Joe's complaining that I must have typoed the email link. I don't know, but I just hold on, Joe. I did send something. Let's see here.
One thing I will say to this morning, the video of the judge, that was crazy, but also I don't know how to feel about this attack on free speech by the Trump administration against places like Harvard and all these other places. So they've come out this morning. The Trump administration said, okay, you can't have any more international students until you start stopping people from saying these things about communism or saying these things that are anti-Israeli. So that's okay. So I'm like, all right. So they're saying if Harvard doesn't stop their students from exercising free speech, then they can't have international students. I don't see how that's not a violation of the First Amendment. You can't, the government can't go in and tell an institution that we only want you to have this type of speech. So I'm trying to understand it from just the principle part of it. When has it started becoming okay that we police speech through this? Now I know the argument. One of the arguments on the other side is that the visas are a privilege, right? So we don't have to give you the visa; it's a privilege. But so is driving. Driving is a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Driving is a privilege, and they say, I don't like what you say. Can they just say you can't get a driver's license? or even filling out for a lot of stuff that we fill out for? Can they just say, hey, because I don't like what you say, you can't get this privilege to government? I don't think they can. I don't think they can. So right now, I think, don't get me wrong, I understand why he wants to go after them, but I'm just, I think, as what's the saying? Free speech goes down to thunderous applause, and I think that's what's starting to happen here. It's not the speech that's protected here in the United States isn't speech that we all agree with. It's speech that you don't agree with that's protected. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, First Amendment, you need to be very, very protective of it, because we don't have it over here.
No, you don't.
You are unique in the world with the strength of your First Amendment. It is the best amendment in the world. You need to protect it, because once it's gone. Then you will be on a European level, at best. You don't want that.
Yeah. I don't know. I have mixed feelings, and Nate and I have argued about this offline a lot. But my big issue is that there is a selectiveness on what is allowed and what is not allowed, and the hypocrisy, I think, is opening them up for this. For example, you're not having any burning crosses, shall we say, on these college campuses. Okay, that's some free speech and demonstration. There's some people with white robes and hoods, and they want to have burning crosses on the campus. Ain't gonna happen. That will be shut down immediately.
Okay, burning crosses, yes.
I'm saying, and Klan hoods, all that good stuff, shut down. And by the way, I don't personally want it either. So it's funny because we get a little bit selective in our free speech. So I guess my angle is that as long as we're going to say we can't do this, we can't do this, you can't do that, then as a matter of fact, we can't say things about trans folks on these campuses, or even fat people. No, even fat folks. There's a lot of push. So if we're not going to enforce things correctly, then the university can shut them all out.
But your premise, I think, is flawed. The premise is the school can say you can't have Ku Klux Klan stuff or no burning crosses. The school can do that. The government can't tell the school you can't allow that. You understand the difference? It's the free speech is against the government censorship. The school can censor, but the government can't censor. So when the government
but hold on, when the school we giving the government money, it is now becoming effectively an arm of the government. No, in my opinion. So if you pull out all public funding, you pull out the public funding, then now they're on their own. Go ahead.
No, but that is not true. That is not true, because churches get public funding and they don't have to have free speech. Just because you get government funds,
how does a church get government funding?
That is a misstatement of the law. Churches do get government funding.
Tell me an example.
I'll pull it up. There's they get grants. A couple of grants started under the Bush administration. They get grants to help people. There's a whole bunch of government funding that they get. That's not tied to their.
I want to yank that too. Then, I mean, I'm consistent in what I'm saying. Is if they're going to enforce things in irregular manner, or if they're going to be collecting money from the government, they are in effect an extension of the government, in my opinion.
Just because you collect money from the government doesn't mean the First Amendment applies to you. That would mean everybody who gets welfare benefits or food stamps, they get government money, that they would be restricted from stopping people from their First Amendment. So yes, just because you're getting money from the government doesn't stop you from exercising or stopping people from forcing the government to do the government's bidding. So in this case, if the government is allowing something like this to happen, if my beef isn't with Harvard, my beef is with the government mandating what people can and cannot say on college campuses. And I think that's the problem. They can't do that. Even if they do take their money, they can't do that.
Yeah, well, you know what? I don't want the government to be funding any of them, any of the institutions. I don't want it to be a taxpayer consideration. I want the institutions to make it on their own, and then we can figure it out. So there you go. That's my
but this is even about the funding. This is about the visas, though. This is about them saying, hey, we're not going to give you any visas because we don't like the type of speech that's coming out of this particular place. And I think that's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous, because the First Amendment forbids it. My fear is that we sit here and we say, oh, we like the fact that they're doing it to Harvard, but then when you get the next administration,
Well, it depends on the speech.
And
because
the next administration come in and say we're going to do the same thing to conservative outlets and conservative things, then people will be crying free speech.
Okay, hold on. It depends though. If you are supporting a known terrorist group, like you're saying, I'm Al Qaeda, yay, or I'm Hamas, or any noted, and there are some domestic deemed terrorist groups. I don't know them offhand, but I know there are some of them out there, and you're claiming those, and you are not a citizen. Technically, we've already stepped away from the free speech angle, correct? Because supporting or harboring a terrorist organization, is that allowed?
Supporting, well, yeah, you can if you want.
If you're a citizen.
Well, yeah,
maybe.
citizen. If you're all right, so it all depends. If you're a citizen in country, or if you're even a guest in country, you have that right. You can say, hey, I'm for Hamas or whatever, and they have the due process rights. But if you're out of country and you don't have it, then yes, they can kick you out, or they can stop you from even coming in. So it all depends on where the speech occurs. If it occurs in country versus out country, or somebody trying to get in.
Well, okay, so Joe, one question for you. Did you get an email from me?
Okay, it's on me. It's
okay.
on me. It went to spam.
Okay. Well, I know that's what you think of me. I know. I'm in your filter.
Spot on.
But thanks for the $10.
Yeah.
No, I like it. I need more mistakes like that so I can earn money. Thank you.
I was gonna say my mistake ended up costing me $10. So what do you want?
Why they got student visa revoked?
Yeah,
lacking reported student requirements. No. Well, they've just clearly said it. They put a letter out and explained exactly why they're revoking it, and it was because of their
that was the most amazing
thing and the other thing. So yeah, so it's they're based on the speech of these other people. The school can't have these things anymore. So like I said, I'm just somebody who
do you think
when the Democrats come in and they start doing this, then I bet you the conversation is going to be different.
There's a lot of potential hypocrisy coming up. I'll be the first to say that. And I've said it before. I always fear whoever is in power, because those who are in power tend to do whatever they can to maintain said power and to squash the other side. That is a common thing. But, I feel like there's got to be some degree of nuance.
What we're dealing with ever since the Khalil situation, what we've been dealing with is this purported tension between free speech and immigration law.
Sure.
All right. I mean, that's what we've been seeing. That's a recurring theme, which we're going to see a lot of. And I would respectfully submit that, frankly, immigration law happens to be the one area where the presidential powers are at their zenith. Who's allowed to be here is up to them. Their First Amendment rights are not nearly the same as yours or mine. It's not a question of classic First Amendment right issues. And I also would point out to you that this is just the argument that the left, I'm not talking about Nate here in this circumstance, but this argument as far as free speech is just the argument that they feel is strongest for them in this particular setting. But we've seen an overarching theme over the last several months that whatever argument they think will best keep every illegal alien they can in this country, or visitor or green card, but every non-American in this country, they will make that argument. We've seen it with Maryland man, and that he's not MS-13. We've seen it left and right. So over here, when it comes to a potential free speech issue, they feel this is our strongest argument here. We're going to throw it out here. But it's not. It's when you're starting from a position of we don't want to allow Trump to remove anybody, even the worst criminals. So you're going to come forward with your best argument. Now, we can sit there and engage in these arguments, trying to say, no, this argument presenting now is wrong. And perhaps there is some merit to that. But at the end of the day, for the most part, I'm not talking about Nate, because Nate is sufficiently open-minded that he actually conceives of these things. But it's talking to a brick wall, because even if you would completely defeat their argument, A, they'll never recognize it, even to themselves. They refuse. There's a cognitive dissonance. They will not accept it. And B, they would come up with a different reason why it's wrong. Because
I have another theory, Joe.
Because they, and it could be an orange man bad derivative thing that
I've got another theory, Joe.
Is terrible. But my point is, this is not an argument that is being made in good faith by most people. And I will say Nate is certainly the exception of that.
I have another theory for it, Joe.
Yeah.
As long as we're arguing, nothing is happening. And that's the point.
Yeah.
Trump is only in office for 3.5 more years now.
Mm-hmm.
And every argument, every wrench, every spanner for you Europeans that could be thrown in the gears is gumming everything up, and they're getting the result that they want. Mm-hmm. Congress right now could be codifying things. Congress has done a pathetic, anemic job, and this is a Republican majority Congress and presidency, and it's pathetic. The smallest number of bills passed in the history of the country, I believe, is where we are right now. So they're falling short on it, and a lot of these things could be straightened out, in my opinion, by Congress codifying executive orders into law.
100%.
Nate, you're a constitutional guy. Am I wrong on that? If Congress says, okay, now here's the law, now the executive order has even more teeth, correct?
Yeah. There's a hierarchy of law, but my disagreement is with the arguments that are being presented here. Is I don't want to talk about anybody's motives, because when someone presents an argument, I just try to look at it kind of factually. And say,
well, isn't that all about law? Isn't it mens rea?
No, not in every single incident. We have the civil law. There's the whole mens rea is only with criminal law. It's one aspect of law, but there's a whole bunch of like, for instance, statutory rape has nothing to do with mens rea. It doesn't matter. So yeah. So that's one aspect of law.
I'm messing with you.
Oh no, some people, maybe some people who think that. But yes, statutory rape is no mens rea. It's inchoate crime. But what I mean is that the First Amendment, my thinking is that this administration, why are you doing this? Now, when it comes to immigration, when it comes to all these things, it's all status-based. And right now, as we sit here now, the courts have sided with the First Amendment arguments. All the federal courts, the people who were thrown out or who lost their status in Harvard, a judge stopped all that and freed all those people. And now you have these arguments, and now they get the injunction. So yeah, there is a viable First Amendment claim. And anybody's telling you there's not a viable First Amendment claim, I don't know what they're reading. Supreme Court precedent says if you're here in country, you get due process rights, you get First Amendment rights, you get all of that. And that's what the judges that are now ruling on this have been saying. Yes, they have these rights, and you have these due process issues. So
I have one question for you, though.
Just because we're talking about deportation,
hold on.
Mean that
is deportation a punishment?
It doesn't have to be a punishment. Getting a driver's license is not a punishment.
No, but that is relevant, because the deportation, if it's not a punishment, even if addressable to whatever the means are, if it's not considered a punishment, then doesn't that go out the window? Like,
no, it has.
You could just shut it down anytime you want. It's not a punishment. You choose that you don't want them here anymore.
Absolutely no. That's absolutely wrong. Just because something is not a punishment doesn't mean the government can take it away from you for any reason. Driver's license, welfare benefits is hundreds and hundreds of cases of law that's just strictly on point. The government can't, because they can do something. It's about the reason why they do something.
Okay, so I disagree with virtually everything.
Well, here, this is one I think we'll agree on. I'm going to change the subject and hijack it, because this is some interesting stuff here, and it's close. It's not exactly on point, but it's about an illegal immigrant. Did you guys see this one yet?
Yes, I saw that last night. This is great.
This is the illustrious.
This is
Judge
case
Dugan.
closed. Case closed. Get yourself a freaking lawyer, Hannah Dugan.
And walks.
We got ICE agents.
All right, there's the ICE agents.
So he's getting taken into court.
Now, mind you, he's there for violent domestic violence, right? He's not a nice. They're bad charges. Now here's the judge. What the hell's the judge coming out of a courtroom for anyway? There are two judges, because that's somebody and the judge next to her.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So I'm assuming now when I was I want to pause when I was in the DA's office, this used to happen all the time. This used to happen all the time, where people are just outside, where let's say NYPD or even federal agents are outside the courtroom to arrest someone who we caught for something else. So
sure, why not? I mean, it's like, hey, you've got them; they're there. I mean, and by the way, is it not, Nate? I'm going to ask you a question as a police officer. Is it not better for safety concern for them to be outside of the courtroom and wait for the people to come out so then they can arrest them with fewer people around, things like that, for safety concerns, rather than going in the courtroom and grabbing them at the defense table or something?
Well, to be fair, I've seen people arrested in the well of the courtroom before too. It all depends on what the court allows. But generally, why you want to arrest them in places like this, because they've already been screened downstairs for security. You know, they don't have any weapons. You're in a controlled environment, and when you're coming out, they probably don't even know that these are agents. So you just step up to the person and just arrest them. So it's a real easy way to detain someone. So
okay,
Yeah.
so we got the judge here lecturing these guys.
No, now she's ordering them to go speak to the chief judge.
Right.
Now,
that might have been the chief judge who was with her.
No. The chief judge is a black guy. So she's
Oh, is it?
ordering
Okay,
them to go talk to the chief judge.
Okay.
And then she's gonna. Now the thing that got her in trouble, when you go
Look at that.
when you go back, you'll see. So he's actually coming out from the side door back into the same hallway.
Yep.
They clear the hallway for him.
Yeah,
There's
and
a
you see
federal
that,
agent.
but she didn't know that was an agent because she spoke to the other guys. So that guy is now
Agents usually travel in pairs, not threes.
Yeah.
No, I think they have a team. I think they have you.
Joe's right. Quite often they have partners, not always 3 or 4. You know, how do they know how many are actually agents?
So they saw the two sitting together and pegged both of them.
No, there was 4. So there was 2 of them, and she went and spoke to another 2 because there was like 4 of them. There was a 5th one she missed.
Well, and here we go. And he's on the run.
And that's when he's running, yeah.
I'd say that's pretty conclusive. Not cool. And I'm pretty sure it's obviously bad when the Supreme Court, I believe, was it Wisconsin or Minnesota? I always get them confused. Has suspended that judge pending, and that's a very, very left-wing state. For them to say, okay, because I think they probably are celebrating her, but she broke the law so grossly. In my opinion,
I can tell you what her defense is going to be for sure. Her speaking to the agents, telling the agents. So her defense is going to be, I spoke to the agents to clarify if they can just take people here. I told them to go speak to the what's it called, the Chief Justice, which they did. And so, and he came out and there were still agents there, and that type of thing.
No, bullshit, because she showed him out. She interrupted the trial. That's where her shit's going to break down to a lie. If she finished the trial, said, okay, everybody go have a nice day, and then he walked out. No, she ended the trial.
Yeah, no, you're right.
She's screwed.
And why is she going out into the hallway? You would think her domain ends at the door of her courtroom. Why is she going out into the hallway?
That's not.
Well, I'm asking you.
I understand. So what happens is that. So again, this is my experience from New York. So when you're an ADA, there'll be a defendant that'll be that ICE will want. For instance, I've had a couple of ICE ones too. So ICE will come and they'll say, hey, this guy Ruiz, we're going to take him after you finish with your arraignment or whatever. And I'm like, okay. So they tell us. Now we then go tell the judge in the courtroom, hey, listen, the guy Ruiz, he's going to be arrested by blah, blah, blah after we finish the arraignment. Now, generally the person's in the back or the person in the courtroom, there's no way to say anything. So and you tell the judge just as a courtesy, right? Because you want to be like, hey, we're all working together here. This judge from back to the facts of this case, this judge then hears that, and she's supposed to arraign this guy and do all that. She stops the arraignment, gets off the bench, and then goes out and tells the agents to go to see the chief judge whether you can arrest people here or not. Now, you're right. At that point, she's now off the bench. She's not doing anything, and they actually don't even have to go do her thing. So then they go back. So then she goes. So allegedly, she then goes after they leave. She goes back and they let the person out of the jury room. So like the jurors have a separate entrance. So when they turn around, that's when he comes out. And that's what Eric is saying. So she didn't have the arraignment. She didn't do all that. She stopped all that so he can get out. So that's the mens rea piece that Eric is talking about, because if she would have went through the arraignment at least, then you can make the argument.
Yeah, she just finished her business and said it was done, then that would be cool. But you know what? I have a special guest here to defend the judge.
Oh,
because I believe I can't remember again if it's Minnesota or Wisconsin, but this individual, I believe, is from Minnesota and can definitely speak for the judge.
Oh, shit. You're fucking up this morning. What's going on, man?
What's up, guys?
Nice.
Welcome to Nik Explaining whatever show you're on.
Nice.
Good to see y'all. Hey, what's
How
up?
the fuck have you been, man? Oh, pardon my French. How have you been, bro?
Sorry. Nate, how dare you use such crass language around me?
Well, on this show, I'm trying to keep this monetized, you know? So.
Good. How have y'all been doing?
Awesome.
All right.
I haven't told everyone as of yet, but
I'm extracting news.
Some other people have spilled the beans on it a little bit. So I just want to let everybody know, yes, we are dealing with a cancer diagnosis in my house. Yes, I'm fine.
Oh.
No, I am not there. Anybody who's doing any donations or anything like that, this not from me. I'm not asking for anybody to do any donations or anything. But yes, we're just going through it privately. Someone who I mentioned it to some other people, and it's getting around.
You or a family member?
It's
in his house.
It's my wife. So we are dealing with that. So that's why you guys haven't seen as many videos and things of that nature, and I haven't been around as much. But we're dealing with it. It's going well. And if anybody's doing any fundraiser for me, it is not for me. I don't know that is not for Nate. It's nothing. I'm not asking anybody for anything. I just ask for for your prayers and well wishes, and continue to call me the idiot Democrat that I am.
I will.
That really helps me take my mind off.
It distracts Nate from the situation. So pick on Nate as much as you can, especially in the comments on the chat. Some of you think that you're attacking Nate and it bothers him, but you don't understand. You're feeding the beast when you comment against Nate. He gets excited. He gets sad. He's like, "What? Nobody's mad at me. Why aren't they pissed at me? This is boring."
The one thing that this has shown me is that a lot of the shit that we fucking argue about, that shit doesn't fucking matter. Like it just fucking doesn't. Like, I hate this guy because he fucking said this about me, or I hate this guy. It's like, really, like at this point in time, when it's funny, Mike Tyson says it best, when you get punched in the face.
Yeah, everybody has a plan till they're punched in the face.
Punched in the face. It's like, but now being punched in the face knows that, hey, there's got to be a different plan. And life is just too short for this shit. So, but I'm hoping we're going to be okay. Everything seems like we're going to be okay. But I'm sorry to bring down the mood too. But yeah,
no problem. We're going to shift.
I'm mad at you now.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't mad at you earlier. Now I'm really angry. I came on here to say, hey, like I thought you said a couple of things that were a little out of pocket, and then I did the same thing back, and I was just going to say I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. No, I appreciate that, and I think I did say I was sorry on the text on the thing, so not the text on the public
on Twitter.
So,
yeah, absolutely. So. And so I just want to take the opportunity to do that.
All right, cool. I appreciate that, bro. But but as I said in Twitter, I still love you. You know what I'm saying? So
and give your wife my best. I'll be praying really hard.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
All right, well, this is probably a great point to shift to degeneracy. So, Joe,
yay!
How about the Diddy trial?
Yes,
I'm listening.
Diddy
I'll be right
trial.
back.
Tell me everything.
The Diddy trial, where freak-offs have been redefined. And in case you're unaware, a year ago, whenever you heard the term freak-offs, people were picturing the most satanic type of orgies involving celebrities and children and mass parties at Diddy's house. That's how the term was defined. For the purposes of this trial, freak-offs are Diddy's voyeuristic intentions, where there's just him, his girlfriend, and some hired guy in a room, and it's a marathon of sexual escapades. That
what is he, like a rich cuck?
Essentially. I mean, when you want to talk about that, but that's been defined as freak-off. And I was thinking when I was listening to Nate talk before about the First Amendment rights and the due process rights of aliens, that they're called First Amendment rights and due process rights, but that's the difference between their rights and our rights is the difference between the freak-offs as used in this trial and how we all were using the term freak-offs, where our due process rights and our civil rights are so much stronger that it's almost an insult to call what they have First Amendment rights. They're derivatives of First Amendment rights, derivatives of due process rights. So it's technically that, and this is technically a freak-off over here, but it's not at all the type of crimes that we all thought would be prosecuted when we first heard about Diddy. So
no gallon of baby oil.
Oh, there's tons of baby oil.
Yeah, that's real.
Tons of baby oil.
There's a big slip and slide, to be fair.
The first day we heard from one of the escorts, and there were several escorts, there were at least like 5 who were regulars that would be brought back on 8, 10, 12, or if not many dozens of times. And the first one who came out was Daniel, and his story, the way he tells it, is a little bit different. The voyeuristic intentions of Diddy in those occasions. He's like, it was constantly oil. Constantly, like, and Cassie said the same thing. Every 5 minutes, we couldn't go 5 minutes without putting on. He's like, no, you need to be glistening. More oil, more oil, more oil. They had extra sheets. They literally, and this we've heard from the managers and everyone who would ever set up the room, they would have to have tons of linens and sheets, and they would cover everything. We saw a picture of her sitting on a bed, on a couch during in a room that was prepared for freak-offs, and everything, the furniture, they would cover.
Question.
They knew they would destroy the furniture.
Hold on, question. Did they test sheets for absorbent quality or lack thereof?
That has not yet.
Premium 600 thread count Egyptian ultra absorbent oil based sheets.
We had a manager come in yesterday from one of the hotels.
Wait, I have some of those.
In LA, it's the La Montagian or something like that. It's some fancy hotel I never heard of in LA. And he was saying how they have notes on for every one of their clients, and for them, it's like take $1,000 security extra for the damage that's going to happen because there's candle wax all over on the floors, and that's with them. That's with them. We heard from a personal agent from one of his personal his gopher guys, who his job would be to clean up the room after they were done, so that it would be in repairable state for the hotel staff. So he would come in there, clean, and then there would be $1,000 of damage still. That they're like, yeah, we need to, like, that rug is going to need a whole new thing because there's candle wax there, or there's oil or whatever.
Quick question, Joe. Who paid for this? Was this paid by Diddy directly, or was it through the enterprise?
So that's a fair, that's a good question. That testimony has not yet come out.
We know this answer, right? It's like, I live in hotels, tear out the walls. I have accountants pay for it all. Remember that song?
But never. Yes, that was a great song. Lucky I'm still sane after all I've been.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Joe Walsh, life's been good. Nate,
yeah, but I will say this: he wouldn't break things. That's what they said. There was never. No one has come forward and said he's not like those rock bands who would basically pick up chairs and smash them against the wall. There were broken vases and stuff like that. He would not break things. He would just make them so gross that CSI would have to spend a month there.
Well, Joe, he did break. He broke a vase. Matter of fact, he threw the cat in. Right?
He didn't throw it. They actually testified that there was no testimony that he threw it. It was that when in his rage he ended up knocking it over.
He knocked it over the broom.
Yeah.
He slipped. He slipped on all the oil. No question on that. Hey, I'm just being reasonable here. Nate, to your question, and Joe, everybody can answer that maybe. When you said, did he pay for it? Did his business? Now, a lot of you guys, you rich YouTuber types, are operating under an LLC. And you're having the LLC pay for everything, personal or otherwise.
Legally.
No. But I'm just saying. So, is that necessarily a factor if you yourself are like an LLC or whatever, and you're paying for different events?
It's a criminal conspiracy. It's an enterprise criminal conspiracy. So it would matter if you could have the enterprise paying for some of the criminal activities or involved in the criminal activities. So it's a criminal.
What you just said, Nate, is
Mm-hmm.
so brilliant. So could someone get caught on RICO because they individually do stuff in conjunction with the company that they control? That now you have two different entities who are working together to do a crime, and no other physical people are involved. It's just one guy and his company are both working to perpetuate these freak-offs illegally. That now would be a RICO violation.
No, well, so for a RICO, you need a conspiracy. So for a conspiracy, you need a minimum of 2 people. In this particular case, you have what's known as essentially unindicted co-conspirators. These are the people who either get immunity or who testify to the crimes that they committed in furtherance of the conspiracy. So, for instance, there it is, not an unindicted co-conspirator. So, for instance,
just in case you go to Atlanta, this is
yes, right.
Happens to have a cup. I wonder why.
So,
Get you ready? Are we looking for something beyond the Tate trial there, Nick? What's going on?
We didn't even hook this up. He had that already. We didn't even.
Exactly. It's like, wait a minute. Confession through cuppage.
two years of the YSL trial. I'm prepared.
I mean, I think.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You keep.
No,
going.
I was just finishing up. I was just saying. So in this particular case, the unindicted co-conspirators are like his assistant. Cassie herself is an unindicted co-conspirator. She's certainly admitted to multiple crimes, and even some of the escorts who have been saying, I was paid for this and I traveled across state lines, they could be charged too, but they are essentially unindicted co-conspirators, and that's how the conspiracy is coming along.
Okay, question. What if he was filming all this, which I understand, Joe, am I wrong? That he
Not
was
all of it. He would
if
it would
he
be
was
haphazard, but he would pull out his phone, he would pick up her phone or tablets, and he
can you imagine how
So what if
greasy
he
those
published it
phones
and
are?
sold that?
Baby oil all over, just smudged across the screens.
Oh yeah. No, question. What if he published that and sold those videos in a limited supply? Would this now be a business enterprise?
That would be revenge pornography unless he had explicit consent from them to do that. That would be horrifically bad choice. Lots of felonies going on there.
But also, I just want to make it very clear the difference between pornography. So the law, for instance, like transportation for prostitution, the law is specific that if the prostitution or the commercial sex act is illegal. So, for instance, if you were to do the same act and come to New York and have the prostitutes and do everything in a hotel room, that's illegal in New York, then the federal law applies to you. But if we go to, let's say, Las Vegas, where prostitution is legal, and we do that same act, then since it's not illegal in that particular place,
actually not Las Vegas,
but
it would have to be
outside,
Reno,
Reno, whatever. And then also, let's say for pornography, if you were to go to California and follow all those laws that they have for pornography, like you had to have the consent forms and everything, and do it, then you wouldn't be able to be charged under those particular provisions. So it's not just any prostitution; it's just where prostitution is specifically illegal, and most of the country it is. So that's why he's getting charged.
So you want me to let you know who I was simply asking whether you could have RICO between a corporation and a person, or whether it has to be 2 humans.
You need 2 humans. You need 2 human beings to have a RICO conspiracy.
All right. So this week, in week 1, the highlight was 4 days of testimony from Cassie, who was one of the sex trafficking victims. Or alleged victims, and she was the highlight of the week in week 1. Week 2, we heard from an assortment of different people who different personal different people who would have assistant chief executive, and he's the chief executive, and that would just be when he explained what he did on a day-to-day basis. He was literally a gopher carrying bags and getting him his coffee and arranging stuff to other people who would manage his day. But the highlight of this week, for purposes of what most folks would want to hear about, was testimony from 2 individuals. Specifically, yesterday we heard from Kid Cudi, who was talking about the love triangle that he had in 2011, early 2012 with Diddy and Cassie, and his perspective on everything that went down there. And we also heard from Dr. Dawn Hughes, who, if you don't remember who she was the expert, the domestic violence expert who testified and believed Amber Heard and went back and forth on the stand. She was the blonde woman from New York who basically thinks that every woman she's never met a woman who's not a victim of domestic violence. So, and she came out to educate, not as a fact witness, but as a blind expert, to just educate the jury about 4 factors. Number 1, why a victim would stay for an extended period of time. Number 2, how they cope with it. Number 3, what type of manners they tend to disclose it. And number 4, the issues they have with memory recall and the haziness of the memory and how those memories tend to come back. So that was the 4 things that she educated us about, and she did great on direct and was destroyed on cross, like really embarrassed on cross. She was phenomenal on direct.
It's like the second time that's happened to her.
I felt greedy. I was watching. I'm like, I feel so greedy that there's only 100 of us watching us, because last time we saw her get destroyed, demolished, was in front of millions of people, and now there's only like 120 people who are watching this trial maximum, and just watching her get eviscerated. When you hear some examples, she's like, so you talked about disclosure and who a victim would tend to talk to, and you say there's formal and informal types of disclosure.
I'll play
So
her. Yes, I did.
So formal you labeled as being that they would come when the first people they talk to is the police or healthcare worker, someone who's trained to help them. And and you define informal as family and friends and other people in their inner circle who they feel comfortable with. So that's what you called that. Where would you classify if one of the first people they ever tell their story to is a civil attorney? What type of disclosures?
So they walked them down like that. They walked. Oh my god!
Agnifilo, yeah, exactly. Agnifilo. At first I found him a little annoying, but he's really grown on me. That there's a charm. He'll make most witnesses and he's only done cross so far, but he'll make them feel comfortable and laughing with him at certain points in time. Like he'll sort of like he can be self-deprecating at times, and he'll sort of do like the classic Matlock type of approach or whatever, or Columbo, where he's just sort of walks down there, and then all of a sudden, just you don't even realize it's coming, like a submarine. It's just or it's just a pow, and you're like, whoa, what? We didn't see that coming. So, and he hit Dawn Hughes over and over again. He started hitting her about the same thing.
That's how you do domestic violence. I mean.
yes, she was a victim of domestic violence on the stand. She really was. It's a great call. She, you see, he was like, so you testified 65 times, and every time, it was for someone who was allegedly the victim, never the abuser. You understand everything about domestic violence, but you seem to understand nothing about the abusers. You told us about the abusers, but 65 cases you've testified in, this is what you do for a living now. You're charging $600 an hour, $6,000 a day, and you come in here, and every time this person is a victim of domestic violence. Every single but the state has good attorneys too. So Maureen Comey, she happens to be, and you can hate her, and you should. I will teach you to hate her if you don't. But to ignore her skills as a litigator, you're underestimating this woman, because she's a very skilled litigator. And she, on redirect, was like, so just to be clear here, do you only testify for government, or do you sometimes testify for the defense? And she's like, oh, I testify for defense many times. And she's like, in fact, have you've been retained by defense attorneys? Yeah, many times retained by defense attorneys. Haven't you been retained by a defense attorney who's sitting in this room right now? And the whole room was like, oh, like I'm in a viewing room, right? I'm in a viewing room with journalists. Like everyone was like, oh, it's like, it's like, Agnifilo wanted to think that it's just she's a government lackey. He even started talking about how she was a government lackey on his cross. He's like, you're helping them write their briefs. You're giving seminars, training people how to do this. Why are you having 6 meetings with the government? Well, and some of those meetings were after she testified, but they didn't tell you. You know nothing about her testimony. No, I know nothing about the testimony. Why do you have to spend all these hours with them? Well, she's like, I'm trying to educate them how they can best elicit the information for me that needs to get out there. It's like, oh, okay. So you're teaching these the DOJ how to question an expert witness? Is that what's happening here? And it's just like, it sounds insane when he phrase it that way. Oh, okay, they need lessons on how to question expert witness. Unless she comes in here and tells them, they don't know how to do it. But after Comey hit with that cross, and it was a right cross about like someone in this room has done it. So right away on redirect, Agniflio stood up here and said, "You said someone in this room retain you. I assume you're referring to Mr. Steele. Is that correct?" And she said, "Yes." And that's Brian Steele. He is the attorney who represented one of the defendants in the Young Thug trial, and everyone was very impressed with how he stood up with brass cojones to Judge Glanville, and ended up getting Judge Glanville removed from the case because of his biases.
Question, Joe. On that, it seems like a big gotcha moment, all that, but you're talking about an expert witness being retained by an attorney and has been retained before. If this expert's halfway worth their salt, wouldn't they be retained all the damn time, like in a regular cycle?
This was not a legal argument. This was not a legal argument. This was them punching at each other. This was the defense is basically saying, you're working for them, you're helping with the briefs, they're paying you. He even asked, she's like, well, the government is paying. She's like, you're not being paid by the National Endowment of Sciences, you're being paid by the DOJ, aren't you? And she's like, yeah, being paid by the DOJ. So it really was more a matter of just like a fight of like, we're going to use this witness to punch the other attorneys. That's what made it so. And it embarrassed her along the way also. And on the redirect, when he explained it, he goes, so when you were retained by Mr. Steele, so that was also a case where you were also standing up for a woman who was a victim, weren't you? She's like, I don't want to talk about that. I don't like talking. It's not professional to talk about who retains me. Oh, okay. But that was a case where Mr. Steele was defending a woman who was charged by the state of killing her husband. That's the case where he retained you. Isn't that correct? She's like, yeah, that is correct. And in that case, you didn't end up taking your stand for him. He didn't put you on the stand at any time, did he? It's like, no, he didn't. And that's because he looked at your work and said, this is not for me. Isn't that true? Objection sustained, withdrawn. So that's why I said it was.
Shouldn't they have? Hold on. Shouldn't they have objected before he answered the question?
Oh no! On the last question, they objected before. They objected and sustained. There was some objection. The judge has been pretty good in his call as far as which objections to uphold, which one to sustain, and which one to overrule. He's been really good. And then so that was Dr. Dawn Hughes. And then yesterday we had Kid Cudi. But if I start talking about that, it's going to be another 15 minutes, and I feel guilty monopolizing a panel.
What about the witness I heard? He's now writing a book about not getting it up while testifying on the stand.
One of an escort. Yeah, he's Nick here is correct. There's an escort whose nickname is the Punisher.
Please slow down. Tell us more.
He testified this week. I forgot about him. He had a website. I don't know if he still has it. I have not checked. You can check.
Yeah, right.
One of you will check. I really haven't. His website is called getpunished.com.
I'm going right now. Get punished.
Oh, of course.
Of course you are.
Don't share the screen.
No.
Is it still there?
What we need is Viva here, because typically on this show, Viva will be the one Googling, oh my God.
It's really funny.
Yeah. So I have not seen. I still have not seen. I'm looking to go the rest of my life without ever seeing that website. And don't bring it up now, please. So, and he's not. So these escorts allegedly are not supposed to be engaging in the type of activity that he was hired to do. That that is the Punisher there. Yeah. So. And he basically
imagine a guy like walking through and be like, hey, can I have a box drink or something? This mask is really hard to take off.
This guy said that he struggled with ED, and that it's a serious problem.
How can you be an escort and struggle with ED.
Well, maybe it's too much oil, Nick. Maybe he's sliding around so much, and it just.
I was going to say that earlier.
Said,
like,
I mean, he would engage. He would engage with Cassie, and sometimes Diddy would be like, "Okay, now I want to see you F her," and he's standing right over me. He's like, I could not perform with Diddy like standing right over me. I just couldn't do it.
He's like,
so
that's weird.
So he's like, it was just uncomfortable. He just couldn't do it. So, and he actually wrote a book where they asked him about this on the stand, that he wrote a book called In Search of Freezer Meat.
What?
About his struggles in this area.
Oh,
and that in the book, it's 182 pages. He testified it's a 182 page book. He spent 6.5 pages talking about Diddy and Cass without referencing them by name and trying to mask who they were, in that he referred to them as a married couple when Diddy and Cass were never married. And he said he used that reference because when he first met them, that's what he was told they were. He later learned that they were not. But when he wrote his book, so he basically was telling a generic story about, and he basically was trying to help people deal with their issues.
I bet his sales go up now.
Yeah.
Oh, the self-published cover and everything is so perfect.
Yeah. So that was in search of freezer meat, and yeah, that was his book, and it was a very shocking thing to hear an escort talk about his ED and how Diddy. Oh. In front of Diddy in particular, he had particular ED. So
I think Diddy's got a false advertising claim on this guy, right? Like,
well, he claimed he admitted that he suffered from the ED before he met Diddy.
There's disclosures. He's good under UCC. He's fine.
He's not saying Diddy gave me ED the way Kid Cudi testified at one point yesterday, where he meets when he met. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, just 30 seconds. That when he had a showdown meeting with Diddy at the Soho house, and he goes, so there's a conference room there, and I walk in there, it's just me and Diddy, and they have a wall of windows that just covers one side when you walk in, and Diddy's standing with his back to me, looking out at the view of Beverly Hills from the 7th floor of this place, and he has his hands clasped behind his back, like he was a Marvel supervillain.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He's like, I walked in there and I was like, I thought he was a Marvel supervillain. And this is after he had firebombed his car and stuff. And I'm going to tell this story. I'm going to be dropping a video where I walk through the entire timeline of what happened in this triangle from Kid Cudi's perspective, based with quotes from his testimony, and try to break that down into like a 12 to 15 minute video for those who want to hear that story. So I'm not going to go through it now, but over the weekend I plan on putting together a video and of the exact timeline of events from Kid Cudi's perspective that we know from his testimony. So if you want to check that out, I urge you to. If people like that type of content, and I get I get real views on it, I'll start doing more and more characters from this story and give quotes from inside the courtroom. And that way I can present it in a way that people will probably appreciate better than just, this is day 4, day 12. It's a better way. It's more digestible that way, I think. So
you should use like AI and moving pictures.
You want to help me with that? Because that's the part I really want. That's what I don't know how to do that. And I really need help with that. I'm not kidding.
I want to know, I have a question for the panel. You're hiring a domestic violence expert. Who do you pick? I pick Mike Tyson. But I'm just curious, who you guys put on the stand.
Well, I don't know, Nick. Is it a how-to or?
I figured they've got all sufficient knowledge on all sides of the issue. Like Mike Tyson has been through the ringer on domestic violence. It's really a shame all that he's had to go through. That poor man.
Yeah. Some people in the chat are saying I'm avoiding talking about interesting witnesses because it makes Diddy look ridiculous. I've been critiqued by others that I've been way too harsh on Diddy and that I'm an anti-Diddy person because I referred to him routinely as a monster. And I had no opinion on Diddy before, and I heard of him. I don't know anything about him. I had to look up to find know one of his songs. I don't have any opinion about him at all walking into this. I'll tell you that after the first week of the trial, I'm like, based on what the defense has told me about him, this dude is a freaking monster and a terrible, terrible human being.
Okay,
I don't think these charges are right. The bad stuff, he's beat the hell out of her.
Oh,
Like,
okay, that's bad. Yeah, I
he
agree
really
on
he
that
beat
one.
the hell,
Yeah,
and
no,
Yeah.
it's not just the video from the Intercontinental where he like throws her to the ground and she's curled on the ground as if she knows what's coming as he starts to kick her and drag her around. But we've
That's
seen
awful.
horrific pictures of her face, and like it was almost like his objective was to destroy a pretty flower. Like he wants to
Yeah.
find
That
and capture
is
a
a
pretty flower, and I want to show that my power is I can destroy this thing.
Joe, that's very, very common in I hate to say murder cases, but a lot of murder cases, it is destroying the partner, in a passion type of situation.
Yeah.
And Nate, you could probably confirm that as a cop. Am I off base here?
Well, they used to always
destroying,
train us
disfiguring.
that these types of acts, for instance, sex crimes, are generally not about the act of sex, but it's about the control and the power over
Sure.
the person, and that's the thing that that gets the person off. Like even with Diddy, the thing that was getting him off, I think there were a point in the trial where she was like, she was taking pills because she was trying to numb the pain, but he didn't want her to take the pills because he wanted her to remember it, and it's those types of control that they're really after,
Which is sick.
not the actual act.
Yeah.
I mean, that is sick.
Yeah. No,
And in the bedroom, she testified about where he would have her put fluids on his body. It was just he's gross. He's a
we have a
gross,
pee corner.
he's a gross person. He's everything. But that's the ugly side of Diddy. Even the people who were so revolted by him, they left his employ, they did come away just in other regards just crazy impressed with his relentless work toward his own success. Even Cassie, when she was first asked she was asked by defense counsel, so you said that he had addictions. What would you say? Can you tell us, what do you think he was addicted to? And the first word Cassie said, success.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I think
that's an astonishing thing. That's an astonishing statement.
I think that's really like it's an interesting thing because, right, like people get focused on addictions as like addicted to a substance or whatever, but if you start looking into it, there's a lot of experience addiction or dopamine addiction or like serotonin addiction where they're addicted to the pleasure center being activated, whatever
Yes.
it may be, and it's the relentless pursuit of success is also tied into the relentless pursuit of everything they do at full speed, maximum volume. Not that I speak from any experience in this field, but it's like you go like as hard as you possibly can. It's like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Like no timidity. Why am I sticking my toes in the water if I want to reach the rocks at the bottom? Like you go for it. And so that's been the interesting thing about Diddy to me, and why I'm like frustrated that there's not a ton of easy to access information, like just to watch along from my perspective, because like I want to see what this guy was up to. I assume he was evil, but the level of damage you can do is consummate to how much power and influence you have. And Diddy had a ton of money, right?
Oh,
like,
he was
he's
worse
able
than
to-
Epstein. If you really
Right.
break
yeah,
it
he was
down,
pretty
Nick,
interesting.
he was
Yeah.
more powerful because he had status on his own and appearing as parties. And this is what I wanted to ask Joe about was, what about the blackmail operations that are suspected? What about this and that? I almost feel like the prosecution is very selective, and believe me, he's a monster. It appears, and they're going after him very specifically, though. But what about all these other people who potentially got brought into his parties? People who are very, very famous, who have a lot of reach, who would love to hang out with Diddy because he was Diddy. I mean, Epstein was just some rich dude, whatever. Diddy was a cultural figure on the level of like Kanye or what have you, where people would be like, yeah, oh yeah, we'll go to that party. I feel like something's getting neglected here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
On that, so far, on what you just brought up, we've gotten nothing, zip, nil, nada, and we will never get that because, as you point out, the charges specifically are crafted to focus on how he hurt women. But you can't do DV on a federal charge.
Kind of like Ghislaine Maxwell, it sounds like, because didn't they forget anybody else in the room other than her and Jeffrey?
Yeah, but here's what's frustrating. Furthermore, it's not just that they carved out the real meat that they should have gone after and didn't go after him, but it's also that the way they're reinventing these charges is, you have to understand, the late 90s, so sex trafficking was a real problem, and it rose to public consciousness enough that Congress said, okay, we got to do something about that. And in the year 2000, they passed 18 USC 1591, which is what the trafficking charges that Diddy is facing. And now they say, okay, people are pimping, they're basically taking lost girls or runaways or illegal aliens or whoever, people cross the border, they find abandoned kids, and then they're basically pimping them. That's what they're doing. So we need to stop that.
Which they've always done, by the way, Joe. It's not like something that happened in the 90s.
It came enough to public consciousness in the 90s that in 2000 we got 18 USC 1591. So now they craft a statute, and they say, okay, what elements are we talking about here? Well, they're definitely forcing them, and there's commercial sex. So they say, if you force someone to engage in commercial sex, in that case, you are guilty, and the crime is so terrible, it's 15 years minimum and potential max of life. So that's how the Congress addresses in 2000. Now along comes the DOJ in 2024. Before you get to that, and we can examine it. Now we get to this in 2024. And in 2024, we have the Diddy situation. Is he pimping people out for money? No, not at all. And in fact, if you think about what the objective of the perpetrator is, the abuser, what is their objective? Their objective is, I want to use this person and crush them to make money. So if you're crushing someone to make money, that's where you're violating 18 USC 1591. The purpose and objective is, I want to make money. Over here, so I'm going to harm you because you are helping me make money. Over here, it's, I'm going to harm Cassie and pay money to harm her. I'm going to pay these escorts. I'm going to pay for hotels. I'm going to pay for everything, lay out millions of dollars to harm you. That's an aggressive level of dedication towards hurting the person, but it's not at all trafficking in the way that Congress had in mind when they drafted it. And if we allow DAs to just reinvent the context, so you have the elements, and Nate will properly go through the elements here to say how she can be caught on this charge, because technically the way the statute's written, he's violated it, at least until we see a defense. And with respect to Cassie Ventura, he's violated it, and at least in my opinion, most people who are watching now. But is that what out of context
purpose?
It's not a commercial purpose. The statute's written for a commercial purpose.
Let me at least go over the law so we're all on at least the same page on what the law is, because I've actually pulled it up. That's what I want.
I want you all just consider this before you pull up the law. I just want you all just consider this: if district attorneys are allowed to use the elements of a law to reinvent what the purpose of the law is, are they not acting as a legislative body themselves?
Don't they do that all the time?
They're making a brand new law, because no one ever thought to make a law of someone so dedicated to hurting someone that they'll spend money in order to force them to engage in commercial sex. Is that because from Diddy's perspective, if those escorts would have acted for free, he would have been happier, and then it's not commercial sex, and then he's not guilty.
Well,
right? That's what makes it so stupid. And from the perspective of morality of the law and how it's being applied.
Well, I think there are multiple issues with what you're saying, Joe, because you're narrowing it to a financial piece where it's not really narrowed. So that's why I think it's probably best to just go over the elements. Number one, this is sex trafficking. Sex trafficking. Knowingly engage in sex trafficking, meaning the defendant, in this case Diddy, knowingly caused the person to engage in a commercial sex act. But since we see commercial sex act in each one of the definitions, it's probably best if I define what a commercial sex act. It's any sex act in exchange for anything of value. This is actually from the law: money, drugs, housing, career opportunity, etc. The defendant must have known or recklessly disregarded the act was commercial in nature. So yes, if you take a woman and have her have sex with somebody to who you're paying, and as Cassie been saying, career opportunity, I was afraid that fits into commercial sex act. So
stop
now
stop there, because I have a question for you on that. If he was not paying the escorts, according to you, you're saying this is still a commercial sex act.
Because it doesn't have to be for money. It could be for drugs, housing, career opportunity. They could say, hey, we were going there because it's Diddy, and we wanted to get into that Diddy circle. So
Right.
yeah, it doesn't
So
have to be money.
We got minor.
Go ahead.
Yes, but minor point of clarification: the defendant has to know it's a commercial sex act, so the person has to communicate to Diddy that they're there to get into his circle and participating in the
Correct.
act for that purpose. It's that he has to have the appropriate mens rea. So
Yeah.
other people making it a surreptitious commercial sex act will not suffice under the statute.
And he
And that-
thought
and
she's
that's
his
exact-
girlfriend. He thought
and-
she's doing it out of love. Assuming now you can make that argument. That's what the defense will say.
Well, I
From
mean,
the
if you're hiring an
prosecution-
escort. If you
Right.
got an escort involved at all, you have a commercial sex act.
Yeah, that's
but,
it.
like hands
but
down, he's
that
done.
part, yeah, I understand that. But I was asking this question because I'm saying, is this really trafficking? And now Nate was very cleverly and astutely pointing out that even if he's not paying them, it's still a commercial sex act. Now but you're pointing out, but the defendant has to know it's a commercial sex act. In which case, you have to say that Diddy knows not that he's paying these people, but that Cassie's doing it for some sort of
No, I
benefit.
I thought
No, that
ignorance
he's paying
wasn't
the-
an
that he's-
excuse.
That he's paying these people makes it a commercial sex act.
That's it.
Automatically. But
Yeah.
there's no argument, and he's aware of it, right? Like he's
Yeah.
hiring an escort. It's commercial sex act.
I understand
Anything
that,
done with that person.
but that's
So,
not what trafficking was supposed to be when this was first drafted.
Well, hold on.
And
I
that's
may
what's
agree
gonna
with
be
you
the
on that.
line.
What it's supposed to be and what it is two different things. So
Yeah.
I would say this: defendant knowingly caused a person to engage in criminal. We know that because he paid this person. The means of coercion. Now remember, this I think they got him on in spades because, as Joe's been saying before, the fighting, the bruising, the video of her saying, "I wanted to leave this freak off," and he beat
Threatening
me up
to
and beat me
release the
there.
videos.
Threatening to
Threatening
release
to
That's
Yeah.
all coercion, right?
Yeah.
And then the last is criminal sex act across state lines, and everybody's been testifying. They flew me to Miami. They flew me from New York to this. So again, if you only, and it's like I don't know how he's not guilty of
Right.
commercial sex act based on what you've been saying, Joe.
why do you have to fly a prostitute to Miami?
Because they
they're
had
there. You
they had
just- you got plenty of them.
interstate commerce.
No, I meant, why can't you just go outside and grab
Oh,
one?
he
They're all
wanted
over
someone-
the place.
No, they had regulars. He had regulars on purpose because he wanted people Cassie would feel comfortable with.
He
So
needed a good lawyer. to
When he
try
was
to fight
torturing
it.
her, he needed people he felt.
Fireman.
Think
he
about what you
wants-
just said, Joe. It's like while he's causing her nothing but complete pain, and he wants her to suffer greatly, he wants people that she's comfortable with to cause such pain. It's a little bit off base. there.
I do want to tell you guys something that happened when I was a prosecutor. So pimps, at first, pimps would be, prostitutes, they get charged with like light crimes and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden, like Joe said, they pass sex trafficking. Now, people fail to realize that sex trafficking, you don't actually have to move someone. It doesn't say anything about moving people, except for the feds. For states, it's just, if you essentially force the person into doing commercial sex acts, you're sex trafficking. So all the pimps now who are getting something like 60 days in jail, they start hitting them with sex trafficking charges because they're pimping out women. And now those pimps are getting life sentences for sex trafficking instead of the general, misdemeanors for pimping. So that's what Joe is saying. The law has been essentially consumed where now all these people who you didn't think it would affect, because sex trafficking is for people who are, like some real stuff. But in this particular case, they are hitting even the pimps at the local level with sex trafficking, and for good reason though. So I'm not feeling bad for the pimps.
and
but it
exactly.
Nate is not pro pimp. Nate is not up here defending pimps.
It's an awkward position because we're sitting here thinking this person who is a defendant is such scum. I wish I could beat the hell out of him and watch him, float away in the Pacific Ocean. And at the same time, we're sort of looking at the law and being like, the way you're approaching this law is messed up. So
It is.
But
you're
it's all the
in
feds.
this weird position as a lawyer. I feel like morality-wise, I feel like I'm in a weird position. But I have
Well,
to
you know
tell
why,
what
Joe?
what I think.
Because there's bigger crimes that I feel like potentially are out there, like blackmail and things that you probably feel very comfortable if we were to go after him. And these other people who are floating around the toilet below like flotsam, that need to be prosecuted, in my opinion. Who always seem to be just scurrying on by. And that is very, very frustrating to a
Well,
lot of people.
he had a pretty good go of it. He's been doing this for like 20 years. Well, he got caught.
Well, what about what about Biggie?
Mo Money,
What
Mo
about
Problems
Tupac?
is
What about
still stuck in my
actual
head.
murder crimes that
If-
he potentially could be tied to as well?
If they can, it's
there's
just
a
like
lot
Al
of it.
Capone. They couldn't catch Al Capone for nothing but evading his taxes, right? So you get them on what you got.
Well, ironically, Al Capone got himself because he died an extremely painful death with syphilis. So that was a kind of a weird
Make sure your
karmic
prison bitch is
turnaround.
clean, Capone.
You know what? I do want to ask the lawyers here. So just so
A little
everyone
bit.
understand,
People are saying Caribbean, but somebody did ask about this.
there's
Any of the panel's take on the Buffalo School District exposure by angry cops on the Unsub podcast? I don't know anything about that.
I don't know.
Long story
I know
short,
some of it.
Oh, Nick
yeah,
knows. Okay.
Buffalo School District is every public school district on earth is doing this. They cover up sexual assaults and any sorts of abuse that happen within the school walls. This is not just a faculty issue. It's an issue with even other students and stuff like that. These schools are like the church and like every major organization on the planet, are very remiss to have a news story or any sort of chatter out there about the abuse of children going on in their schools, even when it's not their fault, because they're in charge of these children's safety and security. They're failing at this job constantly. We've known this forever. The public school system in the United States is one of the biggest purveyors of child sexual assault on the planet, and we all pretend that they're not. And what they do is when they get a teacher who interacts with one of these students inappropriately, they move them to an administrative position in a building where they literally sit all day and collect the salary if they're unfireable, which they often are. If there are kids involved, they hit them with disciplinary actions that are not permanent. They keep the stories as quiet as possible, so that they don't talk about someone out there taking inappropriate pictures or going into girls' locker rooms repeatedly over and over and over. And again, this is not just students or not just teachers, or faculty. It's also other students. They want to cover up the very notion that a child might be unsafe in a public school, and they're actively doing so. They've been doing it forever, though. I'm glad people are catching on. Thank you.
Okay. And then let's shift to the last trial, which I'm beyond sick of because it's screwed up with my Friday show and everything else. Karen Reed.
Before you move, can I just ask? That's what I asked Joe, and the other panelists. What do you think Diddy's going to get convicted? Well, because there's a lot of people who are there now saying, "Hey, he'll never get convicted." But do you guys think that's possible? Well, especially Joe, because you're in the courtroom.
It's too early to tell. I'm not.
I mean, based on how you describe that statute, how could you say no?
Well,
It's pretty obvious to me.
I mean, it's really really too early to tell. Most people that I've talked to.
Nate, mute your microphone, Nate.
Most people I've been talking to.
You can mute him
right
there.
now.
I am. Yeah. Sorry. Go.
Yeah.
And most people that I've been talking to seem to feel like he's a terrible person. I've gotten very mixed vibes. And I've gotten mixed vibes as far as whether or not he's committed these crimes. So I can't tell you what's going to happen because it depends on depending on which person. I look at the journalists as being reflective of the jury, and I really think it's going to come down to who the dominant voices are in the jury room, as to because there's this. I don't think it's going to be a 10-minute decision that they're all going to be like, yeah, we're convicting him, or yeah, we're letting him go. I think that this is. I think the Amber Heard case, it took like no time at all for them to reach a decision. It was just a matter of how much money, because it was so overwhelming. I actually think that he looks so monstrous and looks so terrible. And yet, at the same time, there's at the same time, as far as whether or not he's committed these crimes, I don't know if the jury is being that astute to that. I don't know how intelligent they are. And I don't know who the dominant voice in the room is. I don't expect to be making a prediction as to whether or not he gets convicted. I really think this can go either way. And if it's a hung jury, because frankly, I'm at a point where I hate both sides here. And if it's a hung jury and then they're having to try this case over and over and over again for the rest of their lives, I think that's probably the best punishment for all of them. So
I think it's interesting that I was going to mention this a long time ago during the conversation, but you mentioned earlier that it's like Diddy would have them trying to do so much stuff, like so much ridiculous lunatic stuff, that they probably rarely got around to having sex at all. And I
They would
wonder if
have-
the guy's ED was like, look, I've been slipping on baby oil for 4 hours and I'm really, really warm right now. And there's candle wax all over my butthole. I cannot perform under these conditions. I'm talking to my union manager.
The first escort described what he said is this is if you want to know a little bit more without getting too pressed, but a little bit more about the how they would work is they would have a session. They said basically Diddy's directing them where they're moving, how slow they're going, how fast they're going, and he would continually be like slow down, slow down, slow down to make each session take a very long time. A session is the guy finishing. Okay, when the guy finishes, that's a session. They would have 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 sessions, and then the guy would need to have a break. And that's when
then he needs a break.
Yeah, and
what is he eating? Jesus Christ!
And then Cassie and Diddy would go into a private room, and they would stay there. And she said that was what her benefit was. She wanted alone time with Diddy, and that's basically how she got her alone time. The in between the sessions that she would go with Diddy, and they would spend hours in there. The first escort described how sometimes he would be waiting there for up to 10 hours for them to be finished. And then when they come out, sometimes they want him to go again. Sometimes they would say, okay, go home. So he would be sitting in the hotel suite, they're in a private room, and he would just be like sitting there for hours.
Learn to take a nap, loser. What are you doing?
And sometimes he said and a freak off only would end when Diddy says it's done. That they would keep going until he says it's over. And Cassie testified along the way. She said ecstasy only lasts for like 4 or 5 hours, so she would have to refuel. When with ecstasy and Gatorade, the guy who cleaned up said he would find tons of Gatorade and empty bottles of what are the bottles? Gatorade, alcohol, lube.
Yeah, you gotta have electrolytes.
Talk about turning something into a job, dude.
But what
seriously?
Cassie actually said when she was asked about why she was, because this will come in my Kid Cudi video that I plan on dropping over the weekend. Cassie said that she was in the middle of freak off when Diddy is going through her phone and sees a text message from Kid Cudi saying, make sure you bring toiletries to my house when you come over.
Bring a toothbrush.
He's going through her phone. She's in the middle of freak off, and Kid Cudi saying, make sure you bring your toiletries to my house. And he picked up a wine bottle opener and started chasing her, lunged at her with it because he was so outraged. And she's like, we were on a break at that point, and there's no and that's why I started dating Kid Cudi, because we were off part of our relationship. And the defense said, you said you were not dating Diddy in late 2011 when you were dating Kid Cudi. And she's like, right, I wasn't. He's like, why are you doing a freak off if you were not dating Diddy?
Yeah, it's a good question.
And she said, at that point, it was my job. And it was like, oh,
that's a bad line for Diddy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's your sex trafficking. Yeah.
Yes.
So Joe, for the RICO charges, it's 2 out of 8, right? There's 23 specific charges, and you put them into categories. So you got 8 categories. They just got to get 2 of those. And from the chart, it seems like they've already gotten essentially 2. And I'm not even talking
reluctantly vote to convict at this point. I haven't seen the defense, but based on what I've seen so far, and just Cassie Ventura, not RICO. I don't know that I would give them RICO. They're trying to build their RICO case by bringing in the other folks who all would help out. I haven't seen evidence that any of them really knew what they were participating in. They probably speculated as to what he was doing, but that it was a crime. I don't know if they knew there was a crime going on.
But they wouldn't. Only Diddy would have to know, because I just want to let me bring this up just one more time. The 2 I think they got it for 13G and 13H is from the indictment. I think they got those are 2 RICO predicates they got in spades. Everybody has testified there was massive amounts of drugs at those parties, right? Massive amounts of this, massive amounts of that, right?
Do the other parties, which of the parties know about these other 13 A, B, C, D, E?
No, I'm not talking about the other ones. I'm just talking about 13H, the drug distribution. Everybody testified there's drugs at the party. There's drugs.
Multiple people.
Do they know?
Some people brought them also. Some people brought them drugs.
That's what I was going to say.
Brought drugs.
Do they know the source is Diddy if you're at the party? Because, let's say it's Diddy's producer. or it's anybody else. We saw in the Depp trial, basically people are bringing Johnny Depp drugs, whatever he wants, any and all times. And so I do think that that's a potential defense on the drug distribution conspiracy charge.
But then what about the raid where they found the drugs in his home, right? Those
George Kaplan testified that he brought that Diddy called him, texted him and told him, I want you to go to this guy One Stop and pick up drugs. You're going to give him money. Go get the money from here, or they'll wire the money, whatever it is, and we'll send you the money. And you're going to go. You're going to contact him and tell him him. And then he comes with he said, I handed him a bag of cash. He handed me a brown paper bag with pills. And then I went and brought it to Diddy one time at his house, one time at the hotel where he was having a freak off. Not that he knew there was a freak off, because one time what you just
described is a drug distribution conspiracy, right? He doesn't know there has to be a freak off. He's getting the illegal drugs. You just described 13H.
Yeah, I'm not trying to take a position. I'm just telling you the facts that came out.
What you just described as 13H.
I agree with you.
The other witnesses, and I think 13G is in spades too, because how many of those escorts testified that they were flying from place A to place B to engage in these freak offs with Cassie? That's in spades too. So, and you only need 2 of these to get a RICO conviction.
Yeah.
13G and 13H, I think you got without the other one. Now the Kid Cudi one for 13B, because that's Kid Cudi, right? It's the arson of Kid Cudi's car. Can you get it? Diddy
didn't do it. It was someone else who did it. Someone else did it.
But they still charge him with conspiracy, right? You're doing it on behalf of Diddy. That's the conspiracy.
I'm saying that's an unknown conspirator he worked with, who he basically said go firebomb his car.
The unindicted co-conspirator. So I think from that list, 2 of them I think they already have. And then you have those other 6 that they're working on. If he doesn't get convicted, I'd be shocked.
So Joe, you said this guy is expected to do these sessions up to like 10 hours, and each session is
no, not up to 10 hours. No, much more.
Okay. That's fine. I'm sorry.
I need to make this, because I don't think you're appreciating the marathon.
No, I am.
Here. A short one. He said we'll do a short one. Okay, when she had a premiere the next day, she's like, I don't think I can do this. I have a premiere tomorrow and I need to be strong and look good. And he's like, okay, so look, we'll do it quick. We won't go over the top on the drugs, and we'll start at 7 and finish by 4. So we're done. Sure. That's 9 hours. He's trying to convince her we'll do a short one of 9 hours.
Haven't you ever had sex for 9 straight hours? No, so I was curious, was the escort on Molly, MDMA?
Molly came up a lot.
Because I got the impression that Cassie was,
but both escorts claimed that they were not. Wait, the first one said that I think I have to look back because that was day 1. I think he said that they gave him drugs at some point. The second guy said he never touches drugs or alcohol, and he said he didn't even see them use it. His session seemed a lot shorter. The way the second Punisher was.
Well, yeah,
maybe because of ED, maybe that. But
I was gonna say, if you're on Molly, depending on how much you take, one will make it very hard to finish, is one of the first issues that comes up. I mean, we're talking literal hours if you can get there. And then the other is that
once you whiskey dick or something, or comparison.
No. Your penis will work just fine. You just won't be able to actually achieve orgasm for it's much harder to do so. And that's the normal dose of Molly. When you start adding in multiple doses, because they do, it does wear off after about 4 hours. People will often recharge with a second dose and a third dose. When you start getting into that second and third doses, that's when you run into the erectile dysfunction problems, because Molly is vasoconstrictive, just like cocaine or nicotine.
He claims he's drug free. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe him, but
I don't know.
Good on him.
I don't know. That's his claim. He says he's drug and alcohol free. So
yeah, I was just curious because it's like you started talking about these like 3-hour-long sessions and stuff, and they do multiple ones over the course of a whole freak off. It's like, well, that sounds like Molly.
It sounds like a form of torture, honestly. It really does sound like a form.
Oh, it sounds horrible. I mean, I'm
not if there's Molly.
Well, if you're paying me thousands of dollars to sleep with Cassie, I don't know how much.
It's hard to cheer for Diddy on this. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of going. Okay, so what?
No, there are a lot of people out there cheering for Diddy because the big argument is that this is domestic violence and not.
Oh, so we're going to cheer for that? Oh, give me a break.
But that's the argument, because they copped to the domestic violence.
cheer for the proper charge, right? Like, I think that's what they're saying. Like, if this is domestic violence and not sex trafficking, this should be charged under domestic violence. Why can't you get that charge? Why are you in federal court on a RICO claim over some run-of-the-mill? It's obviously not,
Probably
but over some run-of-the-mill domestic
probably
violence.
probably statute of limitations issues, and also I don't know. Is there a federal domestic violence charge?
I don't think so. I think those are state specific.
It's obvious it has to be a trafficking charge because Congress only has the authority to do this under
Interstate.
That's what I thought.
right interstate commerce clause. So they don't have the ability typically to enforce personal crimes in federal court unless you bring someone across state lines to commit them.
But the fact of the matter is the domestic violence could be the force used for coercion in a sex trafficking case, because a lot of the times, like I keep mentioning,
Right.
in most sex trafficking cases, the woman thinks the trafficker is their boyfriend, so the trafficker holds them that by beating
But
them.
that's part of the grooming.
But then I don't do it. I'll
It
be
didn't
beat.
say Nate did not say force Jews. He said forced juice.
Oh God.
Eat your matzah. Eat your matzah.
It's a Latin term. Forced. When he first said it, I was like, "What? Oh, you mean the Latin term? Okay."
But yes, but
You want to define forced juice for the audience, because how many people in the audience didn't know that definition? Didn't know that term.
Forced Jews is when you tie someone down till their sideburns grow out.
So, but if it's almost like, hey, I can't be charged with sex trafficking because I beat her in domestic violence. Like, no, that's the force used to control the person in domestic violence instead of force.
And also, Nate, aren't people neglecting the grooming factor, that many of these quote pimp situations start as a quote domestic violence and take care of them at home, and then you got to take care of them with the friends. I mean, that's kind of a common pimp pipeline, isn't it?
Well, I want to also be very clear too. The difference between domestic violence and regular violence is that you guys had a relationship, right? If you just hit somebody, if you just go and slap a woman who you don't know, that's not domestic violence. That's just violence. But then if you slap a woman that you're dating, that's domestic violence. So the difference is just between the relationship, not even the so it's not. I don't want people thinking because we're saying domestic violence, it's some type of lesser type violence. It's the same violence. It's just between people who know each other. So,
oftentimes they consider it more like the intimate nature of it, and also the inability of the person typically to leave due to either physical limitation, like they're smaller and they're unable to get away, or to the natural coercion of being in a family, right? Like if you have to leave your kids, you have to leave your house to escape the violence.
Custody and whatever. Yeah.
They look at domestic violence a little bit more severely a lot of times because of that.
I think they should. I mean,
I agree 100%.
So, all right. On that happy note, the other domestic case, and hopefully we'll go quickly through it. And poor Nick, he's like, I don't know. I'm not following Diddy. So Nick is going to take the lead and tell us what the hell's going on with Karen Reed, with the other Nick. So the two Nicks will talk about Karen Reed.
You start.
I start. Okay. The prosecution's case is coming to an end. They might have one or two witnesses left. One of them is running into a problem because his work is based on partially by Mr. Bergnes, who was on the stand last week, who just happened to lie on his resume. How about that? He was pursuing his BS. Well, that was BS, but he was pursuing his bachelor's in mathematics, science, and general studies or whatever.
But only for 17 years. Like
he graduated in 2008 and has since pursuing his BS. And then we come to find out, because the sleuths out there checked him out and found out he hasn't been enrolled in any school since 2019. 6 years ago. He was enrolled for 3 years without getting himself a bachelor's. But he still has it on his CV.
If he did one course a semester for 17 years, he would complete a bachelor's program.
Yeah. And he was enrolled in the University of Alabama, Birmingham, whatever it is. And what he is pursuing, they don't offer.
Okay.
If there was a definition of a hired gun as an expert, that's the guy.
Wow.
Because
how do you redirect that?
Oh, it was bad. It was bad.
Oh, it was so bad.
I try to picture from the litigator perspective. I'm like, okay, that's my guy on the stand. How do I try to fix that?
The way they tried to fix it is effectively that he has been an expert witness for this company for 10 years. I mean, they have been misrepresenting his pursuit of education for a decade, but he has testified, he has done it for that decade of time. And the argument would be like, as a forensic analyst, the fact that he doesn't have a bachelor's degree in a field with highly shifting and evolving technologies, the experience that you have from day-to-day work is far more valuable than the piece of paper that you get from completing a degree. The problem, I don't think, is with his actual qualification.
No.
It's the fact that he lied about it for no reason. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, absolutely no reason, because we have seen, for instance, if you go back to the Viva Frei trial, they had an expert there who invented the field. Of course, he doesn't have a bachelor's. Do you remember who that was? Something within management or whatever it was.
Oh, I think you're talking about the guy who did the marketing and assessed the impact on the star value as how that went.
Yeah. And he had basically no education whatsoever. He invented the field of expertise. So of course you don't need a bachelor's to be an expert in a field. You can be a highly renowned car mechanic and testify about cars. You don't need a bachelor's about that.
They tried on Redirect to remedy it by comparing him to Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, who both famously didn't have bachelor's degrees.
But they didn't claim it either. They both bragged about not having it, by the way.
Yeah.
So that
Oprah
work.
Winfrey,
they're also billionaires who created.
Also billionaires, and Oprah Winfrey has a bachelor's.
Right, that was weird.
Yeah, that was so
like, why
weird.
are you? I was like, Bill Gates makes sense. Steve Jobs makes sense. Oprah Winfrey, as always, doesn't make sense. So why are you bringing her up? But no, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, of course, inventing the two most popularly competing ecosystems for personal computer use for the past 40 years. Yeah, I mean, they didn't have bachelor's degrees, but they're cool. This guy's a super nerd.
Hell, Michael Dell didn't have a bachelor's degree too, if we're going to go down that path.
Yeah, it's really common for CEOs to go, I'm tired of this. Mark Zuckerberg, I don't think he ever finished his bachelor's, did he?
Maybe not. I don't know. It might have been honorary, but yeah, I mean, it's like they've started a business in their dorm room or whatever it is, or garage, and holy shit, they're making all this money. We'll get back to school later.
But don't forget, though, that I think school helped them, because everybody we're talking about built their businesses while they're in school. Because you meet other people of like minds, and then you say, hey, So I think that's the issue.
There's tons of value in education. It's just like it's like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs are not the rule. Like they're so far the exception that it's embarrassing that they brought them up with this dork on the stand with this little hair island, like properly manicured. It's like what are this guy is not them. Why would you ever say that? You should be like, well, the guy at McDonald's doesn't have a bachelor's degree either, but he's really good at running.
He's better at fries than anybody else I know.
Yeah. No, I mean, even the franchise owner, right? Like that guy can run a small business better than probably most of the people in town. And he didn't have to have a degree to do it. He just worked really hard.
Yeah. So
breaking news.
Yeah. So the next couple of witnesses, one of them relies on the work of that guy who lied on his resume needlessly.
And one of the papers that he relied on, he made a critical error of confusing bits with bytes, which completely eliminates the validity of his paper. Like the entire paper is based on this error that he made. He's like, no one else saw this. Like, well, no one else was stupid.
Hold on, this is well played here, by the way, Linda. Diddy dropped out of Brown, so there's that.
Yeah, but he's not on a stand testifying that he knows.
Oh, never mind.
Diddy dropped out of Brown. Now Brown drops out of Diddy on Cassie, right? Like that's
on camera.
That's how it goes.
Just to let everybody know, this is a breaking news now. Harvard federal judges just issued an injunction against the federal government for Harvard.
Yeah, I knew that.
Taking away
of course they didn't. There's always a judge on standby.
Insert Pikachu face. I mean, nobody's surprised. I mean, not even me. And I'm half.
It's like it took this long.
What happened this morning? It's like, damn, they move fast.
So we're closing in on the defense case, and everybody is asking this one. Will the defense call Trooper Michael Proctor? And yet, I would be extremely surprised if they didn't.
But Nick,
Yeah.
for Proctor,
Wait, which one? Shit.
Which one?
No, I'm both Nicks. for, because you guys both are discussing it. For Proctor, the defense is going to be calling him as obviously a hostile witness, so it's going to give them the leverage to use cross-examination. But I want to ask you both, for the prosecutor, I was arguing with other lawyers about this, and my view is, if I'm the prosecutor, I would have done the same thing, because that allows me to cross-examine him on when he comes up, and that gives me more leverage than if I bring him up and try to hide and do it on direct. It limits me tremendously. So let them bring it up. Let them bring it up on his open, and then I'll be able to counter it in court. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if your arm's going to get cut off, tie the tourniquet in advance.
Yeah. The problem is that the prosecution so far has done everything humanly possible to not mention Trooper Proctor. Had they brought him up in opening statements, that we are not going to call the disgraced former Trooper Proctor. This is what he did, and but it has nothing to do with the facts of this case. He's a disgusting human being, but the science is still there. Had they done anything of that sort, yes, I would. Yes, this is a good tactic, but they really put a lot of effort into making Michael Proctor into not the lead detective. Oh, he was barely collecting evidence, even though his name is on 60% of the evidence bags. He was the one who kept the clothes in his office for 6 days before handing it over.
Can't the defense call him Nick?
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, and they're likely going to.
Likely, very, very likely. So yesterday, I went back and streamed the original direct examination. And that stream is demonetized because, well, I had words. Let's just say I had words. A lot of them started with F and C. And today, in about an hour, I'm going to stream the cross-examination. And I assume it will be demonetized as well. But
Frito chips.
Yeah.
All right.
But just to compare, what did he say back then to what he will say, I would assume they would call an ARCA witness first, then Trooper Proctor, and then a few other witnesses, and then end off with the crash daddy, Dr. Wolf.
I can see that. Yeah. First of all, I agree with everything you said so far, and I think your summary is excellent. The one thing I would add to supplement it is the state strategy from the start has been to ingrain in the jury's minds the idea that Karen was conscious of what she did, that she's guilty of it, and that she admitted to it. And there's one thing that I want to personally put out there, because I don't know if I don't have time to monitor everybody and make sure they're doing things right. But I don't know if anybody else is emphasizing enough how effective the state has actually been in this. And I'll point to my friend Joe. When I was on with Andrew Branca and Joe joined to talk about the state's opening, the first thing he mentioned when he was just saying, Hank Brennan's opening, Karen Reed says, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And so it's right there. It's automatic. And that's what they started with in the opening. I mean, it's almost Hank's, he almost said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. That's what Karen Reed said on that night she knew it. He almost started that way. He gave himself a little intro before it. But they have made sure that in this case, as opposed to the first trial, they had one witness testify to that. In this trial, they've had, I think, 4 or 5. Yeah. And so they have pushed the impression that Karen Reed knows she's guilty. And Nate, as a former prosecutor, I'm sure you can attest, or I'm going to look like a fool, that when you have an admission or you have a statement of a consciousness of guilt, it's about the most powerful tool in your arsenal before a jury, because they can overlook deficiencies in the factual record as saying, well, investigations can't be perfect or whatever. But what you can't overlook is someone saying, I did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
And,
cannot overlook that.
And on top of that, you have.
Well, I just say it's the most powerful thing hearing it from the defendant's own mouth. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what makes it most powerful.
Yeah,
And I
and
think
he backs it up with the video clips of the interviews. And I've said this for quite a while. If Karen Reed gets convicted, it's because she did interviews.
Yeah,
And-
those interviews they're weirdly devastating to her.
Yeah, she's unlikable. She speculates about her own guilt. I mean, and apparently her lawyers were kind of in on it. I can't grasp how now I've heard the excuse that, oh, but she needed the money to fund her defense. I don't see that as a valid reason.
No, I don't either. Those interviews will be, if she loses, those interviews will be critical in burying her. They also, this is another thing I don't know if other lawyers have talked about too much, but Hank Brennan used these 2 video clips early on in the case, completely out of context and divorced from any sense, to make the consciousness of guilt argument, to effectively tell the judge and the defense that he's going to insert consciousness of guilt into the record based on these clips. And the defense did not object to it. What they did object to with the second clip getting in was overruled, so it got in anyway. And so now the state has the ability on close to stand up and say, we've heard Karen Reed say multiple things, conscious of her guilt. She knows what she did. She knew that night that she had hit John O'Keefe, and she's running around trying to pretend that she didn't. And they've got that now. It's not objected to. It's not appealable. They're toast on that issue. And I think that was a huge miss by an otherwise excellent defense team. And it really, really bothered me to see Alan Jackson give that point to Hank Brennan without levying a very competent objection. He should have done it, because Brennan just lays out his legal argument, and now they've accepted it, and that's very bad.
Yeah,
very
and
bad.
I can see because state's case, defense case, then you have the closing, the defense closing, and then you have the rebuttal. And I can bet money the only thing Brennan will do is play all those clips in a row, and the defense can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and that's going to be brutal.
Yeah, and he's going to play clips we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, anything that kicked the door open to, then that may be part of the state strategy too. We don't know. If the state doesn't call Proctor, but the defense does, and in their cross-examination, they kick open the door to some excellent rebuttal evidence that the state may have and be holding and waiting to bring in at the end of the case. I mean, if they have any idea where the defense is going to go with Proctor, and are prepping to, again, sort of put stuff behind the door, then that could be very damaging to Karen Reed as well.
Yeah. And I see in the chat, he was never hit by a car. We know. We have also seen a lot of cases with less evidence and people get convicted.
Guys, there's a Frontline documentary about 4 guys who got convicted of rape because they were bullied into making admissions by a really evil cop at the time. One of them was on a boat, a Navy boat. They can prove it from the manifest that he wasn't there. He wasn't on ground that day when the rape occurred, and wouldn't be for another week. This guy admitted to it. He was convicted over the fact that he wasn't even in the country. Like, admissions are so dangerous to a defendant. And
there's a Netflix series, Nick, as well. It's called The Confession Tapes.
Yeah,
and it's literally a whole documentary on. There's 4 episodes. Different, police who are essentially getting confessions. They've multiple seasons even. So 11 episodes of it. And these are all confessions. Things like the Reed technique. People may want to look that up.
Feeding, is that where they feed people information, like subtly through stuff before they ask the questions? Like, here, take a look at this picture. And then they ask them about the scene that they're at, and the picture turns out to be the environment. So then that's in their mind freshly, stuff like that.
Yeah, the real technique is it is designed against people you have. The original design is you have overwhelming evidence to back it up with, so you can start lying to the person because you already know based on the evidence. Now,
This is a problem, though, Nick.
many cops do the same, but they have zero evidence just to get information,
Nick,
and then you get the false confessions.
there's a factor on this too, because you're talking about U.S. Versus European, etc.
No.
I've interviewed Albert Frei, who is like the deception scholar. I mean, he's actually a professor, Dr. Frei, studied deception and everything else. He brought up something to me I never knew. In the U.S., cops can lie. I knew that. The Supreme Court held that up. In England and I believe Netherlands, where he's from, and other parts of Europe, whatever, cops cannot lie. And that is a very devastating thing. If you consider that a person could be sitting there and cops are lying to them saying, I have 4 witnesses that saw you do blah, 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 blah. Even if you didn't, it's like, I can't beat them. There's so much overwhelming evidence potentially that could force a false confession just by the cops lying about a scenario. You could think that you have overwhelming evidence against you. It's just a thought.
Most of the Western world have that cops can't lie to, but so USA is one of the few countries in the Western Hemisphere that where cops is allowed to lie. And I read the original decision. Can't remember what the name was of it. And the original decision is really, really narrow, but it has evolved. The goalposts have been broadened so much due to, this is appealable because the cop lied and it's not under this. And then appeals court or state Supreme Court says, well, we can see it within the boundaries, even though it's borderline, and you move the goalpost. So the original is not as broad as it is being used for the past 20 years.
Government power always expands to reinforce itself. Gentlemen, I love you all very much, and same to the chat. I have to go right now. My kid's having a award ceremony that I need to go attend, of course, and it has been wonderful talking to all of you guys about stuff that matters. Thanks for having me. Chat, get off your asses and slap the like button. What's wrong with you? There's over 1,200 people here. There's only 460 likes. Get to work. What are you doing? Anyway.
All right. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, guys.
And I'm wrapping up it anyway. So
right.
Nate,
Later,
we'll start with you. What do you have coming up?
I had the video I dropped today about so Adam Schiff, for those of you who don't know, has been caught up in the same type of mortgage fraud scandal that Letitia James has been caught up with. So his scandal is he owns a small apartment, 650 square foot apartment in California that he was saying is his primary residence because he's state of California, but he's voting and doing everything in Maryland. And even took the press, and when he refinanced his $800,000 house, guess what? He refinanced it for it to be that it's his primary residence
in Maryland.
In Maryland, so his
he can't. Oh my God, that's such a major screw up because he can't be a politician representing California. That's called carpetbagging unless he has a residence there. So that has to be his primary.
He does have a residence, but he's not his primary residence. So he said it was his primary residence in Maryland for all these years. They found out. And then guess what? The last year he said, well, the Maryland home is my second home. My primary residence is actually in Burbank, California. So he's been caught out there, and they're saying that this is essentially mortgage fraud because he did this. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sure you cover this in your video. He was censured by the House Ethics in 2009 because he had done this, and he said, whoops, and then he did it again in 2011 and 2013. So he's already used the I made a mistake claim before Congress, and then he did it 2 more times subsequent there too.
Well, that's not even the end of the story. It gets crazier from here.
Oh God.
Check
It gets
out,
good.
check out Nate's video.
The last part is that the other senator from California, guess where she lives?
Maryland.
Maryland. And guess where her permanent residency was also?
Oh,
Maryland.
Nice.
So right
sounds-
now, Maryland has 4 U.S. citizens living in there. Matter of fact, it was so bad for the second senator that she had to go and register to vote in California after she was dubbed senator because she was registered in Maryland. So yeah, so all the California senators are now living in Maryland. So that's what we're covering. And the story, and for those of you watching, it's getting like 60,000 views an hour. But nobody, it's like my whole thing is that how could this just be missed all these years? It's like nobody ever just thought to look this up. And to be fair to CNN, who's turning right wing all of a sudden, CNN was the one who busted this and busted this news. So it's a feather in their cap for finally bringing something up against some Democrat. But yeah, they made it very, very interesting. So that's what I'm covering.
Cool. Eric?
awesome. Joe,
Diddy.
how about Diddy?
Yes, I'm in court every day. I'm not there today. That's why we haven't been having. One of the reasons he hasn't been having shows is because we've all been covering the Karen Reed and Diddy trials.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but today because of Memorial Day weekend, so there's no court and there's no court on Monday. But every day I'm in there. I'm dropping live reports, and I'm also planning to be dropping videos where I break down the.
Are you gonna call them Diddios?
videos.
You can have that.
Thank you. But basically telling over, because this has become a soap opera saga. We're hearing about what's the backlives of Diddy going on for the last 15 years, and folks who have been involved in the chaos of Diddy world, which is how it's been called over and over in this trial, the chaotic Diddy world. So I plan on breaking down those stories into nice digestible pieces where you can understand what we have or what the perspective of different participants in the stories are based on testimony, with giving actual quotes from their testimony to walk you through a timeline as to how their lives were going on over the ranging in period of time between 2007 and all the way up to today. So, but mostly 2017 to 2018 so far. With that, but it'll come closer because the Jane period is from 2020 to 2024. So I plan on giving you videos which will be breaking down. This is Kid Cudi's story about Diddy's story. This is Cassie's Diddy story, and basically try to start creating a series on that. I hope you guys will share and like it and watch it, because if I see it's popular, I'll keep doing those little breakdowns like that.
Is there transcripts available, Joe, that help you with some of
I
that?
have some transcripts. I have a guy inside the courthouse. I have a friend who I made with another journalist who's been kicking it over to me, where I usually get him a day or two late. And I was thinking about doing a live read of like some of the testimony on my show, which I might do that, like with the Kid Cudi testimony, but I haven't gotten that yet. I don't know if I'm gonna get that before Tuesday, because he gets it a day later and business day later. So,
All right. Well, let me know if you can get them and all that. We could talk on the side, but there may be something if there's transcripts that
sure
can be done a little bit with AI or whatever.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
I don't know.
I appreciate
we'll
that.
see.
We'll talk.
Nick.
Yeah. Well, in 50 minutes, I'm going to check out and stream the cross-examination of Michael Proctor from the first trial. I will have a beer or more. And if you're really, really nice to me in the chat, you might see a Nick licking the neck of a bottle. Just in case you are stalled for it. Other than that, I am covering. I've been checking out more of the popular judges on YouTube, the Judge Simpson, Judge Boyd, and the likes, and the tiny stories, and the sometimes very, very surprising endings to some of these hearings and trials and everything. For instance, we started this stream about free speech, and through Judge Simpson, I found out that there was a protest on the University of Michigan those hearings were under Judge Simpson, so I listened in on them and I streamed them, and it is now the Attorney General has decided to drop the case against them, against 5 or 7 protesters. So yeah, you find some what we call over here some nuggets in there, and I try to post it with commentary.
All right.
That is what I'm doing right now, in wait of Donna Adelson and YSL trial part 2 with the 3 remaining defendants that will start in June, and then the YNW Melly trial in September.
All right. And today, I have another show today, America's Untold Stories, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be going over the JFK assassination files hearing that came up this week, along with, of course, some other news. If you're into the JFK type of thing, my partner Mark is extremely deep in it. Some interesting people that they're pulling to this hearing that I'm not going to call it a sham completely, but it's not the most impressive work ever done compared to previous hearings in the 90s and the 70s and things like that. It's kind of, we'll call it a hearing light, if you will. But we will be talking about it and going in details. And Mark, I'm sure, will be filling in with even more details, like who are some of these people who are talking? Why are they talking? Who's this guy, George Joannides? Why does he keep coming up? Perhaps he's the white whale of somebody who is not testifying, but is in the background working the Congress people, if you will. So some interesting things coming up with the whole JFK deal, and I hope you consider checking that out. And I don't know what will happen next week. The Karen Reed trial seems like it's going to go on for a year, but hopefully enough lawyers will be able to pry themselves free that we can come up and do something. It would be really nice if you guys consider subscribing to me and getting the numbers to come up to help motivate and encourage people to do this. The numbers, we've just been losing subscribers. So it's hard to stay completely motivated when, I see the subscriber count going down. Please share with a friend if you like this kind of thing. And that helps motivate me and everybody else to come by. And thank you.